Hey, this is Dustin, and today I'm going to talk about Smugglers Notch in northern Vermont. Smugglers Notch is made up of three mountains: Morse Mountain, Madonna Mountain, and Sterling Mountain. The entire vertical drop of Smugglers Notch is 2,610 vertical feet, which is the fourth highest in all of New England. They have 78 trails, including 22 marked glades. The longest run is 3 miles. They have 1,000 acres of terrain, although only 310 of those acres are actually marked trails and glades. Snowfall is 280 inches annually, which is some of the most snow in the Northeast. Okay, as far as lifts, there are 6 doubles. I'm going to go in order left to right, looking at the trail map. So the first one is Morris Highlands lift. This is basically a beginner's lift with its own base area. It starts halfway up Morris Mountain and goes to about 2/3 of the way up Morris Mountain. I guess it would be a good place to go if you've never skied before. It's all pretty much green terrain, and I think there's a beginner terrain park over there. The next lift is the Village Lift. This runs in parallel with the other lift on Moores Mountain, the Mogul Moose Magic Lift. Well, it's a mouthful. So both of these lifts run basically from the base of Morris Mountain to the top of the terrain over at Morris. They serve mostly green terrain, although there's one black, and there's also a blue that runs off of the Mogul Moose Lift. This is basically going to be where all the kids and families and beginner skiers are going to probably spend most of the day. It's a great place to learn how to ski, and it's a pretty nice long run, and it's not too difficult. So this will be where most of the lessons are, and some of the more beginner skiers are probably going to want to spend most of their time. The next lift is the Madonna 2 lift. This lift goes from the base of Madonna and Sterling in the center of the mountain, and it goes kind of 2/3 up the way up Madonna. This is a pretty good lift for intermediates to go up. It has mostly blue terrain, although there are a couple of black diamonds and a couple of glades, as well as a terrain park. So this is a pretty good lift session if you're just coming off of Morris and you're feeling a little bit more bold but don't want to tackle some of the tougher terrain that Madonna and Sterling have. The next lift, which is the Madonna 1 lift, is probably the most popular and best lift, in my opinion, at Smugglers Notch. This is the lift that will take you all the way from the main base area at Madonna and Sterling all the way up to the top of Madonna. I believe this lift has about a 2,000 foot vertical rise, maybe a little more than that. And this lift services some of the double black diamond terrain as well as several blacks and blues. This is going to be the longest lift at Smugglers Notch and probably the most fun as far as I'm concerned. So there's basically 4 double black diamonds that are some of the highlights at Smugglers Notch for advanced skiers. There's also some easier black diamond glades such as Doc Dempsey's, and there's definitely enough blues to get any relatively competent skier down. The next lift, double lift, is the Sterling lift. This lift services all of Sterling Mountain. So Sterling Mountain is more of the intermediate mountain compared to Madonna, although there are still a number of relatively challenging black diamond trails. There are still just as many blue trails. So I think this lift is a little bit shorter than Madonna 1, and it's also not quite as hardcore. There's also one T-bar, which is the Sterling T-bar, It looks to me as if this T-bar pretty much services the Sterling Terrain Park, and this will be good if you just want to progress in your terrain park riding and keep getting better at tricks and rails, stuff like that. So as far as personal experience, I did most of my skiing at Smugglers Notch in the 2014 season, and I don't think the mountain has changed much since then. But during this season, I got a college pass for about $200, and I made it up there probably about 15 days, and it was some really good skiing because that was a historically good snow year. Now I'm going to go over the pros, or the things that I like about Smugglers Notch. Number one is definitely the steeps between Robbins Run, Upper FIS, Free Fall, and especially the lift line, which is some of the steepest terrain that I've skied under a lift on the East Coast, certainly. I think there's plenty here to keep experts very entertained. They also don't groom any of these trails, which I really prefer, especially when there's good snow. Also, the glades are really good. Definitely check out the video by Ski the East. They have some really good footage of some of the glades in Smugs. Also, there's a trail called the Black Hole, which they call a triple black diamond, which is very tight and steep. It's probably one of the most difficult glades I've skied on the East Coast, especially because it's so tight, and people love to kind of show off in there. The next pro is not exactly a pro of the Smug ski area, but it's a pro of the area overall. If you go up the Sterling lift there, if you go straight back off the Sterling lift, there is a lake back there which is relatively flat. If you traverse along this lake, there are plenty of drop-offs on the right, which people call the Smugs back bowls, which I've really enjoyed skiing. They actually drop out onto a road which will bring you back to the Sterling base area. Also, if you keep on going past all of these drop-offs, you will end up at the Stowe ski area. So you can actually ski both Smugglers Notch and Stowe on the same day, because one of the lifts at Stowe ends up toward the top of the Sterling Mountain. Also, another pro, as I already alluded to, is the amount of snowfall at 280 inches. They do pretty well for the East Coast, and they get some good powder dumps when many of the other ski areas in the area, and certainly south, may only get a 6-inch snowfall. They're getting a foot plus. Also, the slopes at Smugglers Notch are relatively uncrowded. This may be attributed to the low capacity of their older and slower speed double lifts, but going down the hill, it's very rare that you'll see more than a few people as long as you're off the main kind of groomed trails. Also, their tickets are relatively cheap. A full price day ticket is $79 for an adult, although you can definitely do better online. Also, another pro that I hear people talk about, but I haven't really experienced it, so I can't speak personally about, is the family programs. They consistently get voted like some of the best family and ski school programs on the East Coast. I don't exactly know what these are like, as I said, but if you have kids, it sounds like a great place to drop them off while you have a great day out on the slopes. For the negative side of Smugs, I definitely say the season length is not very long. I think they only go from December till early April, so if you want to ski in October, November, April, or May, definitely cross Smugs off your list. Also, the snow tends to be not quite as good as places that make a ton of snow in the early season. But if you want to go in late December, January, February, March, you should be fine as they get a ton of natural snowfall. The lifts can be a problem for a lot of people. They're all slow doubles, many of which were made in the 60s and 70s. I think the Madonna lift takes about 12 minutes from bottom to top, and also the Sterling lift takes 11. So the lift lines can get kind of bad towards the base area, especially on weekends and holidays and stuff like that. Also, the traverse to and from Morris Mountain can be kind of tough, especially if you're a snowboarder. It's a pretty flat green run that takes a while and also will exhaust some people who are not used to traversing the flatter side of ski trails. Also, I've heard this complaint from a couple people I've been to Smugglers Notch with. They said that the challenging terrain isn't exactly for them. It's not for everyone, and it is pretty challenging. And a lot of the wooded areas are tight, and the main double black diamonds are pretty steep. And they say that the intermediate terrain is just okay. It's nothing that any other ski area couldn't do just as well or even better. Although there are some glades with like wider trees and lower slopes, that's probably not what Smugs does best. So Smugglers Notch has 4 main lodges. I think the main one that I've been to the most is the Madonna Sterling, which is between the bottoms of Madonna and Sterling Mountains. This place has a restaurant, it's got lockers, it has a bar, and it's pretty much the main base lodge for the main part of the mountain. There's also the Hearth and Candle, which provides lunch at the top of Sterling. This is like a pretty bare bones lunch place, but it provides really good views and cheaper prices, fast service, and stuff like that. There's also the Village Lodge, which is at the bottom of Morris Mountain. They have a pizza shop, a deli, a lounge / bar, also an ice cream shop, and the rentals and ski shop are right next door. Also, there's the Morris Highland Day Lodge, which is right at the bottom of Morris Highlands. I've actually never been to this one, but I believe they have a restaurant as well as a couple other services and stuff like that. This would be a good spot to go, probably only if you're going to park at the Morris Highlands base area. So Smugglers Notch has not changed very much since 1965, as you can see. All the main lifts are exactly the same, although they've cut quite a few more trails and put in a couple more minor lifts. It's been a long time since they've even, updated the mountain. Also, there haven't been any new lifts since 1999. So this is very much like a throwback, old school New England type of mountain. So the one proposed expansion that I could find online didn't have a ton of details, but they were talking about expanding up to the top of Morris Mountain. Right now, the lifts don't go all the way up to the summit of Morris. They go probably about halfway, and it looks like a lot of the terrain up there is more like the rest of Smugglers Notch, so a little bit steeper, and they could probably cut some interesting trails, maybe even put a lift all the way from the bottom of Morris up to the top. This would definitely make it easier to get between mountains, say from Morris to Madonna. Also, they could provide some terrain and make a good case for skiers to actually just stay on Morris, even if they were better at skiing than the average skier that skis on Morris right now. So there has actually been quite a lot of speculation ever since Vail bought Stowe a couple of years back. So Stowe is now on the Epic Pass, and that's driven a lot of traffic, and by all accounts, Stowe is making a lot more money than they have in the past just because of increased traffic from this pass. People buy the pass, They go out to Colorado, they go out to California, all over the country and the world. And especially if they live on the East Coast, they'll be going to Stowe all the time. And because Smugs and Stowe share a summit, a lot of people are speculating that Stowe would buy Smugs, and this wouldn't be unprecedented because they've definitely combined the canyons in Park City out in Utah, which shared a couple of summits. So a lot of people are saying that Smugs will become part of this super resort with Stowe, which I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if it was, I think it would take away a lot of what Smugs is right now. But with that combined ski area, I think I would definitely go check it out at the least. I think that would make it easily the largest ski area of the East. But a lot of people are concerned that it would take away what Smugs is, and they would probably put in maybe a high-speed six-pack, as Vail's been known to do. And just because, Stowe is such an upscale place with really nice lifts and really nice gondolas and lodges and stuff like that, it would fundamentally change Smugs. And I'm not necessarily for this, but I'm not totally against it either, because I think this could be a new destination for all the East Coast, and everyone that owns property at Smugs, those values would go up, and it would bring a lot of people up from New York City who are being idiots, and that would probably make a lot of longtime locals mad. But overall, I think it would be a different experience and not necessarily a worse experience. And they could even open up the back bowls to skiers, or maybe do some kind of guided tour, maybe even put a lift out there, who knows. And I think that would be terrible for a lot of the locals who've enjoyed this kind of sleeper, independently owned ski area for so many years, but it would open it up to a lot more people who haven't yet experienced it. Thanks for checking out my review, and I'll be back pretty soon with another one.